When Sparrow did sing about the white meat and thing, man them start to fret like he never eat a dog meat yet. But if ever you lack the understanding of once you go black, in the pages of history will document Harry's testimony. You know why? The prince gave up his money, the prince gave up his throne, the prince gave up his power. Why? Just for dog meat alone. He family go sour. The queen, she might sing she soul, but him mother go proud when he singing out loud. Dark meat to the world. Harry tell him, once you go black, hey, you'll never go. You watching TV, sing it. Once you go black, you'll never go back. The haters on social media say that Harry will soon regret, but they will never understand why he leaving, because they never eat a black meat yet. Hey, everybody, go Harry, you on the couch. Go Harry, you in the kitchen. Go Harry, watching TV. Go Harry. Whoa. Harry messed with the pride when he introduced his bride. The queen, she wasn't happy. She was like, what nonsense is this, Harry? It was a big joke. Harry never make the woman get a stroke when he proclaimed, yes I do, to a woman of a darker hue. So with that, the prince gave up his money and he kicked away his throne. He telling me he want no power. Why? Just for dark meat alone. He family go sour. Long.
Welcome to the Late Night Show. Hope everything is okay. Hope everything is all right. I'm your host, Andrew Dick. All right, kiddies, what is happening on the lovely island of St. Martin? The Democratic Party held their fiesta on Sunday gone. And of course, everybody was waiting to see who going to show up, who's not going to show up. And it was an affair that was unforgettable. Of course, Theo Heiliger, the former leader of the United Democrats and the former leader of the United People's Party and the former number 2 of the Democratic Party is back home with his wife, Grisha Heiliger Martin, who is now a candidate on the Democratic Party. Of course, we have the highlights for you, and it was interesting. It was an interesting meeting. So, of course, Late Night was present, and let's go into the highlights. I'm not going to make you wait. Let's go into it right away.
It's official. It is time for solid leadership that blends the experience and knowledge of the current generation with the new ideas for the next generation. It is time to have the right people with the right frame of mind to regenerate and revitalize the Democratic Party.
Yes, sir.
A party of legacy, like we just heard today. It is time to come back home. Time to roll up our sleeves and work together without individual ideologies.
Amen.
But with one purpose.
Amen.
Putting Swahili first.
Say it again.
And we can only achieve this together by setting aside our differences and standing together for what's right and what's best for our people. Through preservation, sacrifice, and strength. Why do I say those words? Because together, we can continue to preserve the best of who we are. We can and should not lose sight of that. Because together, we can make the necessary sacrifices and truly put our country above self and build a sustainable economy for our people. Because together, we can invoke the strength of our ancestors that was left here to build this country. They did it, we can too. But most importantly, I would like to close with this scripture, Romans 8, verse 28. And all we know, that all things work together for the good to those who love God, and those who are called according to His purpose, end quote. Let's live a purposeful life. Let's leave lasting legacy for the future generation to follow. And now, we are at this impasse, this crossroad. Let's choose the right path together. Because together we and together we can. Together we Thank you, everyone.
Well, okay then. Interesting. Of course, Auntie Sarah did address the crowd. You know, they had a cross section of our community there, and I must say that you know, it was noticeable that the weavers was not present. It was noticeable that I only saw one La Bega. I don't know if they had more La Begas, but I only saw one La Bega there. So I don't know. But it could be a strategy because, you know, Democratic Party, this was just a energizing type of meeting. I can't with the different slogans. But, you know, Auntie Sarah addressed the crowd, and of course, you know, Theo was right there watching Auntie Sarah, like he used to, like always, like back home, like back in the old days.
We, all of us, are not in a good place today. We are not in a good place today. We were in a good place when we were in control because of a mindset and a vision. And even when we were in a subservient constitutional position in the Netherlands Antilles, we were in control because of a mindset and a vision. How often did we not take our minority position in the Netherlands Antilles and bring federal governments to their feet? To their knees, in fact. We were, when in 1954 and following, we opted for economic development above constitutional development. Why? Like Alston stated, those days, and those of you, I'm sure none of you were there, but those of you who read and studied the history of St. Martin, no one wanted to be on St. Martin. Our parents were away from St. Martin. Women were left here alone. But we opted for, that's why we opted for economic development. We were in a good place when we established St. Martin Day, French and Dutch St. Martin, a mindset and a vision of one island, one people. We were. When in 1989, we established a university long before the USM was even close to the level of a university, but it was our university. Our people needed to learn. Our people needed to take positions in the tourism industry. So we are proud of our University of St. Martin and where it has come from and where it is today. High tide, low tide. Just like the Democratic Party, the University of St. Martin survived and is growing. We were in a much better place when we were leaders in this region, when persons looked at St. Martin as a place they wanted to be at all costs. How many of you in 2017, in the midst of a disaster, I'll tell you I did, and ended up looking for somewhere to get something to eat, and strangers who were on St. Martin opted to be on St. Martin, meeting them in restaurants with candles lit, but they didn't go anywhere because of St. Martin. We were in a much better place when we were able to draw a line and stand our ground, have a position, have a vision. Not everybody is going to agree with you or you with everyone, but take a position, draw the line. We are not in a good place. How did we get in this not good place we are in today? How did we move from where we were to where we are? St. Martin used to be ahead of the pack. And I want those of you who are in here today to raise your hand if St. Martin has given you the kind of opportunity that you have gotten. Those of you who might not be from this country and decided to come to this country, raise your hand if St. Martin has given you the opportunity.
So understand the trajectory. The trajectory is very simple because most of the time, kids, we kind of get lost in, what happens in politics. Claude Watty, who was one of the founders of the Democratic Party, and is Theo Heiliger's grandfather, founded the Democratic Party with somebody else. I can't remember right now. Don't judge me, okay? I need to read some books. Anyway, then 70 years. It's been 70 years that the party has existed. Of course, Auntie Sarah has been there for 70, she hasn't been there yet for 70 years, but she's been there for a while, I think for years. But anyway, so Auntie Sarah has been run under, as the leader. And then Theo Heiliger was destined to take over the party from Auntie Sarah back in 2009. But then, of course, he left the Democratic Party and formed a government with the National Alliance at the time. He was an independent member. And then he became, he started the UP Party. So along with some other DP members, Frankie Myers, and we know the story, the UP was born. That's in 2010, stay with me, okay. So they ran the elections, they received a lot of seats. Then afterwards, he formed with Sarah, which is the Democratic Party, to make the United Democrats. Then after he made the United Democrats, he then left the United Democrats and went back to the UP and appointed Rolando Bryson, a.k.a. Napoleon, a.k.a. the tallest member of parliament, a.k.a. the devil that makes the deals, as the leader of the United People's Party. Rolando Bryson then kicks out his wife, Theo Heiliger's wife, who was supposed to take over the party from Rolando Bryson after 2 terms, and goes back to the Democratic Party. And now we have the UP run by Rolando Bryson, and we have the DP run by Grisha by Sarah Westcott Williams, or Grisha Heilige Martin, or Theo, or all three, or everybody facing their guns at the United People's Party because, according to Grisha Heilige Martin, it's not a party, it's a group. Interesting. Quite interesting. It's going to be a couple interesting coming months, of course, with the road to the 2023/2024 elections for the Parliament of St. Martin. So again, up, UD, up, DP. Or I should say DP up, UD, and then up, and then DP. Jesus, I can't keep up. You see what I did there? I can't keep up. Anyway, what else? Today I had an interview with, the former Minister of TIAT and now the Minister of Teachers' Rights, the Women Island Teachers Union, Stuart Johnson. It was a very interesting meeting. I should say a very interesting interview. We discussed the current situation with teachers on St. Martin. So we're going to go to that. And of course, it wasn't a political interview. Let me give you a disclaimer before, because when people heard that Mr. Johnson was coming, it was like, oh, he run in. Take it easy. This is about the teachers and their rights. Okay? So let's go into the interview. Okay, we are here with the president of the Women Island Teachers Union, Mr. Stuart Johnson. How are you doing, sir? Welcome to the late night.
Thank you. And it's welcome back, actually.
Yes,
I've been here before, so it's welcome back.
It's welcome back.
Good evening, St. Martin.
Let's talk a little bit teachers. There is a brewing situation. The summer payment to several public teachers is just one of the many brewing issues. Give us a synopsis.
Well, Andrew, there's several issues in education. If we look at education in itself, I have to first start off by saying, what is the vision in education? We need to define a vision in education. Where do we want to take education, our students, our educators, the stakeholders involved in education going forward? Is there a roadmap? Is there a plan? We've seen many things roll out in ad hocness, and here and there certain initiatives. Yes, I applaud every initiative that is positive for St. Martin's education system, but we have to have a vision. A vision guides the direction forward. One of those points you've mentioned is the summer program that was implemented. It was a summer program that the public schools of St. Martin had, and the Hillside School also embarked on this past summer. As you know, before the union was consulted on what the program would look like, I gave my recommendations, I gave my outline of questions, and of course the department responsible applauded those questions, constructive, and the meeting went well. I would have hoped that we would have had a response and a further follow-up in regards to those questions. Some of those questions are the same issue we have today. What would the payment look like for public school teachers? I was very adamant in that initial discussion that it should not be included on their regular salary. We all know the taxman is not everybody's best friend. So when you add it on to a civil servant's salary, they pay a high percentage of taxes, and that's very important that persons understand that. So the long and short story of it is they were paid their first payment. An advance was made. The second payment and the balance of that payment is due to them, which would then be calculated in terms of the deductions of the taxes, pension premiums, whatever other calculations have to come out. My issue is, and still remains, what was communicated to them throughout the process. One instance was mentioned to them that they're not supposed to have a second job. Yes, as a minister and a competent authority, you can issue a decree that allows a civil servant the opportunity to have a second job once permission is granted. And I think persons in the government apparatus must learn their role and responsibility. What is possible for the office that they have? And so that was one of the misconceptions that I clarified to the different stakeholders and those teachers involved in the process. And to be very honest and candid in this interview, when they came to me, they all knew that it was things I told them from before.
Yeah.
So they kind of came, like a student that did something wrong and was scared to come because of the reprimand. Of course, I won't be like, well, I told you so. But fact is, those things could have been avoided.
Yeah.
And it comes with social dialogue between the union and the ministry in particular. Just this past Friday, we had a meeting which was publicized that it was an ultimatum given to meet with the board of the union, all members unanimously in our last general membership meeting to a packed Y2 office, gave me the mandate to call a meeting with the minister within 1 week, and if not, I would likely have to call meetings in the morning hours. And so it's very important that we had met with the minister. A number of issues, as mentioned, was made, were outlined, one of them being the summer school program, the other being the adjustment to the vacation schedules. Vacation for this school year will end on the will begin for the next school year on the 31st of July. So basically the next school year starts, the available week that teachers have, the 31st of July. I think it's a record-breaking early start to a school year than ever before. So what the union did was we looked at the various vacation schedules up to the 2024-2025 school year that has been signed off by ministers over the past few years. And so the ad hoc committee that was formed looked at all of those and the regulations around it. The primary discussion going in is not the technicalities of what regulation or what regulations could or could not be used, but the fact is the spirit of the conversation. And that's what we capitalized with on Friday. What is the spirit of the conversation? We have to look at the schedule in its totality. One of the key questions I asked in that meeting was, is the carnival vacation schedule also considered? Having had been the former president of the SCDF, I know that that's something that should also be considered. And admittedly so, they said, no, it's not. My concern is, one, I think all stakeholders should come around the table and give the motivations for why they see certain dates should be in the schedule and why it should be planned accordingly. That has not happened up to this moment. So I'm hoping in the proposal that the minister will provide us by the end of this week, within 1 week of the last meeting, that will also be one of the considerations put forward. And if not, of course, in my response, I will put that as one of the key points that the union would like. We must have a sit down with all stakeholders involved as it pertains to the vacation schedule. It can be that, for instance, oh, well, I'll reach out to Y2, let them send me an email. I'll reach out to the school boards, let them send me an email, and maybe we'll consider it or maybe we won't. And then I asked about changing of the vacation schedule. And of course, in the meeting had different stakeholders. One of them indicated that it can only be changed if there is an error. Incorrect. The vacation schedule is signed by ministerial decree. And so the minister, his or her responsibility and political power that the office have can be to instruct the department or the departments to make the necessary changes in the spirit of what would be best for the country and the education system on St. Martin. That is the responsibility of the office a minister holds. And I hope that consideration will be given for this school year and other school years to come, that the union is a part of that process. Another big issue that was addressed and is requiring further dialogue is the payment of the vacation allowance.
Yeah.
For every year since I've been in education for the past 15 years, we have seen vacation allowance put on our salary slip on a monthly basis. From August of the past year, so 2022, we have not seen that anymore. So instead of signaling the alarm down in June, I've signaled the alarm already since the ending of last year and the beginning of this year, this month now, that something has to be given in terms of an assurance that we will receive our vacation allowance as expected for this year and going forward. I don't want it to appear like a voucher that because we're in a special year, that we're going to surprise everybody June 15th, oh, there's your payment, why you were worried? And then next year there's no payment once everybody's in and there's a settlement in a coalition that is going to govern for the next period. You know, that isn't how it works. We are talking about the livelihood of persons, their financial responsibilities, and so there's a responsibility that comes with that. So the vacation allowance must be back on the table, making it very clear in this program, the vacation allowance, the indexation, the increments that have been frozen because of the COHO that everybody now is celebrating. There is no COHO. Well, civil servants have suffered. We have gone through the freezing of your salary steps, the traders, your salary scale, and the steps that comes with it, myself included. So it's time for us to get what is rightfully due. And how does that come? And while maybe some of my colleague unions might disagree, it comes by putting everything on the table. What was the frozen period in terms of those calculations, what that will look like? What will the COLA look like? So the Minister of TIAT also has a responsibility in calculating the indexation for the necessary salary increments, as well as the different interministerial agreements that are needed. So for instance, Finance has to make its calculations, TIAT has to make its calculations, the Minister of General Affairs also has her role to play, and the Minister of Education. So I was promised that the letter and the concerns that we have in regards to the vacation allowance and others are going to be discussed in the Council of Ministers. Having been there, I know what that discussion will look like and can look like and should look like. And of course, that discussion requires that the majority of the council has a way forward. And that way forward is also one of the recommendations that we have, is that the union must sit down with the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Education, and the Minister of TIAT. And of course, the Honorable Prime Minister is always welcome as the Minister of General Affairs. And that is also one of the recommendations from our meeting that we had, and I look forward to it being in the proposal I'm expected to receive by this coming Friday. A date and a direction on that point as well.
Of course, the education for the past 3.5 years, or 3 years, has been, somewhat very interesting, the way it has been handled. But we have a minister who has been, one minister that has been in charge of that. And some would say the rebuilding of schools is taking long, repair of schools. And I know you also are a school manager. But as a party, as the Y2 president, I'm sure you hear from the members some of the concerns, main concern in education that is continuing. Give me some of the concerns that you also receive, so that we can get an overall look as to the education, how education really looks like, because promises were giving. The things were signed off, special packages were done for public schools, and everybody received materials, for example, when some say they didn't receive. So, give us, from your members, what are some of the things you're hearing?
Well, fact is the Martin Luther King School is closed because of the Y2. That is one of the main concerns that the Y2 championed, and that is because of working conditions. The working conditions were not conducive. There was the prevalence of what seemingly was mold and other concerns. We sent in the VSI inspectors to do their due diligence. We have asked repeatedly for the report to be made public. We have not received that. By the end of the day, the minister decided to close the school to this present moment. That's an interesting scenario. If there was not something there to be concerned about, you wouldn't close the school. But we leave that to the public to decide going forward. In addition to that, there's other schools that have working condition issues. And a number of schools, not only within public education, but externally, subsidized school boards have expressed the working conditions. Some of them, in addition to the actual working environment, there's issues in terms of immigration policy and procedures that needed. Some of them are still waiting for their work permits. Some of the processes within government do need to realize that there's a special requirement in education. We need to put persons in front of the classroom, and if a person has been on the island for the past 15, 20, 25 years, holding up their immigration documents is unacceptable, especially where it concerns a teacher. It's not somebody who's just a Johnny-come-lately just to the island. There is still persons up to this moment leaving. I had to deal with another case with the immigration issue at one of the subsidized schools that is still not resolved. The person is in front of our classroom teaching our nation's children, and if the minister or the ministry has to do something, then it is to look at the expedition of the process in getting those documents finalized. It should not be a back and forth, a tug of war when it comes to educators. If you don't have your own, if we're not educating our own within our system, within USM, within the system that we have, NEPA and otherwise, and we have to bring in experts from away, then we also have to make sure that those experts are not bogged down by bureaucratic red tape. And so it's very important that persons understand that. When it was the COVID-19 pandemic, we remembered teachers like they were superheroes. Persons wanted schools to reopen. Parents then understood that a child sitting down for 10 minutes is an impossible task. We deal with students 6.5 hours minimum per day, with all sorts of challenges in a classroom that is mixed diversity of different ethnicities, different learning styles, different ways of dealing with situations, and we bring all of that together in a structured environment. If we don't have that support, we will see the effect later down. And I tell that to the members, I tell that even to my staff, with my hat as a school manager, that we have a responsibility today, even if there is a lack of a vision, even though there's facilities that we need improvement, our responsibility is that despite what we're facing, we have to do what we have to do and do it as best as we can. I say that to say this because our next doctors, our next nurses, if they're unable to calculate a figure, if they're unable to write properly, it's going to affect us. If I have to go, for instance, in the hospital and take an injection or do something and they don't do it in the right manner because they haven't had the right training and learn what they had to learn in the process, we are going to be affected as a society. We see it even with the processing of certain thinking abilities. If a person has not gone through education properly, you see that they draw a conclusion that might not even be factual. Or you see mental cases on the island that should have been red flagged from before, and because the system didn't work in the direction which it should have, and teachers just basically pass the student on to the next and then the system weeds them out, that also puts our country at a disadvantage. And so the issues in education are one, besides the salary issues and the increments that are needed, because if I do a simple calculation of the last 2 to 3 years, that's going to take us up quite a bit in terms of the issues in education, financially wise. And of course, if the ministry needs a calculator, I have no problem bringing one, especially in public school. We have unique calculators that can calculate any figure. But truth be told, Andrew, there are serious issues besides that. The immigration issue, addressing special needs, concerns of our students. There must be a system and a process in place. For instance, I believe that in primary education, we should start from pre-K. There should be early stimulation in every school on St. Martin that allows the school system to take up the responsibility from a much earlier age, because we see students coming in at age 4 that have not sat in a room, do not know what a structure looks like, has never seen what a color chart looks like, do not even know the basic numbers or the alphabet, absolutely nothing. But if you put that child in a pre-K, that prepares them already going into our school system. You have some parents, for instance, that resist in not having this child potty trained and expect us to do that. That's not allowed. We don't do that. So parents also have a responsibility to play and work with teachers. Teachers are not fighting you. Teachers want the best. We have already had our degrees. We want to make the best possible outcome for your child, ensuring that they reach their maximum God-given potential. And as union president, I see a different perspective in our members. I see hardworking, genuine people actually going above and beyond. And are there moments where I even tell them, well, you know, you could have done this differently? Yes. But I leave that to internal discussions. My direction and guidance as a union leader is not to be emotional, is not to turn up the temperature, but to be professional. We are a professional union. We're a teacher union by nature, and so we must follow the steps and the processes. There's a change of guard. Let's be honest. There is a change of guard, and the change of guard is quite simple, that 27 and a half years, Ms. Elsha did a phenomenal job. I'm humbled and honored to take up the role with her. But the direction and the times we are in now requires us to be professional, requires us to calculate every step and mitigate what could be a response and make sure we're ahead of the curve. And we're proving that. We've done over the past year and a half excellent things as the new union board, and I look forward to even more going forward.
So Friday is the deadline. And if Friday comes and you receive no response, then of course you have to do a different course of action.
Correct. And that different course of action, I'll be very candid and open, Andrew, is the membership who I have constantly emailing, calling, WhatsApping me, stopping me on the road, even have a little minute for recreational time, finding me on the road. They're ready to meet. I'm not going to, my patience are running out. I know you've probably saw that live last year. My patience have run out. I think I've given enough warning, enough hope, and like I told the minister on Friday, it is a call for dialogue. It's not a call for threats, it's a call for dialogue. Let's sit around the table, let's discuss, let's come up with proactive agreements that will mitigate what can be. And of course, if we shut down the nation's schools, it will have an effect, and it will be different than any other time before.
All righty then. Let's continue the late night. Of course, we have a lot in store for you. A little bit more. Yeah, we still have some time to go. So let's continue.
Batman forward. Batman forward. Batman forward. Batman pull up. Batman pull up. Batman forward. Batman pull up. Ravers, slavers, I do